All right, everybody, this is welcome to the webinar on how to get the most out of your systems, especially using Quickbase as a platform. We are going to be having a really great webinar today. Hopefully it'll be very educational, informative to you. But basically our whole goal with this webinar is really to present some great solutions to help your business scale. Co-presenting with me is going to be Leanne Huntley, who's the Senior Alliance Manager at Quickbase. So you can say hi, Leanne.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. As Brad mentioned, my name's Leanne, Senior Alliance Manager at Quickbase. I am based in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I've been a part of the Quickbase team for nearly 2 years now. I thought it would be fun to kick off the call and have people drop their location in the chat to see where everybody's dialing in from. So I'm sure we'll see that ramp up as the call goes on. And so in my role, I handle the sales, marketing, and operational aspects of the partnerships at Quickbase. And I've been fortunate to work with VARC team, during that time directly with Brad. And so my understanding in this role is there's a few partners that bring a lot of value in a capacity like this. And so VARC has been a valued Quickbase partner for over 18 years, dating back to our time under Intuit when they previously owned it. And so VARC has held a high tier level under our partner program over the years, and they are renowned for their standout offering of Q2Q Connect, which is a user configurable Quickbase to QuickBooks desktop integration tool. And so this is very popular amongst our customer base. Our reps love to sell it, super easy to use, and their team is always very helpful with those integration, ready to answer any questions. And so that's been a really big success here at Quickbase. So I'm honored to showcase VARC's partnership and how they can enhance your Quickbase experience if you're new to it or have an existing Quickbase account. So I will pass it back to Brad, who is the COO at VARC, and let him dive into it.
Awesome. Thanks, Leanne. I'm glad to have you here and really appreciate your support and partnership as well. And by the way, for those of you that are new to the GoToWebinar platform, if you do have questions, there's a question panel. You can also use the chat panel. And you also can raise your hand if you have a question and we can pause throughout the webinar, answer your questions. This is a live webinar, so feel free to ask those questions as we go. But again, the goal of this webinar is really to showcase Quickbase for sure, but it's with the context of how do you grow your business so that it can scale efficiently, profitably, and just have great systems in place to help manage that, not only as a leadership team, but as a management team, as a production team, as a shop floor team, whoever in your company is using those systems, Quickbase is a great solution. So today, we really want to kind of expose one, certainly we're going to answer the question, what is Quickbase, what it can do for you, but also before we kind of dive into the demo part of this webinar, we really want to make the case for Quickbase. Why is it needed? What other systems are out there that you may or may not have tried that may or may not be a good fit? And so we'll kind of expose some of those scenarios for you as well. But let's go ahead and get into it. And again, so there's going to be a little bit of an intro part here. We'll switch to kind of demo mode and actually show you Quickbase so you can see it and really visualize for yourself what this is that we're talking about. And then, of course, at the end, if you do have any other questions for us, if you want a more in-depth one-on-one type of custom demo, follow-up call, thing like that, we can do that as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing I really want to start talking about is really the case for Quickbase. Okay, why is it needed? Okay, and so I'm going to present that as a problem. The first problem that we hear all the time at VARC Solutions is I feel like I'm outgrowing fill in the blank. Okay, so that could be I feel like I'm outgrowing QuickBooks. It could be I feel like I'm outgrowing my Excel spreadsheets. It could be I feel like I'm outgrowing my sales pipeline tool or my email marketing platform, what have you. at some level, you're trying to scale and things are getting more and more complicated. And at some point, you might feel like you're outgrowing the software that you're using. And so if that's you, you're definitely in the right place because there are solutions for that. Here's another example. Again, this is some of our like client experiences that we've actually talked with business owners that are trying to use this. You know, hey, I'm a vehicle wrapping service. I do estimates. I do invoicing. I receive customer payments. And that's great. And my accounting software can do those things very, very well, very easily. But what happens is, what if I have a client that actually accepts my proposal and we actually need to start work and we want to then manage the entire production process that my team and design team and my art team and my QC team, how do those people manage that entire process? And how can it all be kind of interconnected so I'm not copying and pasting from one system into another system all the time? That's something that is a big problem with a lot of different systems. And then kind of going beyond that, you know, think of yourself as, you know, if you're the owner, if you're the business manager, and you have all those things happening all the time, multiple things happening all the time, at some level, you're going to need visibility into all those different moving parts and where things are at and which ones are finished, which ones are close to being finished, things like that. And so having that visibility at the leadership level or project manager level, those things become increasingly important as you scale. Again, here's another example of some problems that we've heard from folks that call us and some of the gripes or complaints that they have. And one of the most common ones is, hey, you know, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I had this guy build a software system. It was completely custom code. He was the only developer on the project. He's the only one that knew how it worked. And he is retired. He has moved on. We can't get a hold of him. And we can't find anybody to update that system. Okay, you know, it wasn't documented, all those types of things. And so you've got this code or this very proprietary product that you've created that is a perfect fit for what you need, but because it is not a public, you know, open source, you know, commonly used system, there's nobody out there to support it, and that becomes very, very frustrating. Is probably a good word for it. Okay, or here's another one. You know, I went out, I shopped around, I found this perfect system. It had all sorts of, you know, features, functionality, all these amazing things that the salespeople said it could do. And the problem is I only use like one or two of those primary features, but because it's got all this other stuff that I don't use and don't need, it feels overly complicated. I can't get through the clutter to get to the stuff that I definitely want to be able to use and do with the software. And so really what I want is just something that can give me just what I need and not all the other stuff that I don't need. It's like, hey, I got this great CRM software and it's got all these things that might be great for some other company, but I don't need those things. Okay, so being able to have something that's custom to you, but also supportable is incredibly important. Here's another, again, common scenario that we hear pretty frequently, and that's, you know, hey, I subscribe to this software program, I purchased this platform, and you know, it's good. It's got a lot of things that it does well, but here's the problem. It's not very customizable. It's not very adaptable to my needs. And so anytime I have something that doesn't quite fit what the software wants me to do, I've called the company and said, hey, can you fix this? I've called the company and said, could you improve this feature? And what I hear back instead is, yes, thanks for that feedback. We'll add that to our product pipeline or our product roadmap. And the translation, by the way, when anybody tells me that something's on their product roadmap is that might happen in 2 years, that might happen in 5 years. More than likely, it's never going to happen. But thanks for your feedback. Okay. So when you've subscribed to a software program that you don't own, that you don't control, you are a slave to that company, or you're a slave to that system in the sense that, you know, you're at the mercy of that system, if you will. it's up to them to decide what's important for the software platform, not so much what's going to suit your needs. And so a lot of the times that we get that feedback, it's I really need a system that's for me, that adapts to my needs, that adapts to my schedule, versus me having to wait for some other company to come out with that perfect feature that I've asked for. Okay. And again, when that happens, when you're in that scenario, the feeling of being out of control is very frustrating. It keeps people up at night, and nobody wants that. Okay. Here's another example. Okay. And Leanne, I don't know if you these kind of things, you hear those when you're talking with clients and prospects of Quickbase, but this is one that we hear all the time, and that's, hey, I'm doing all of this stuff in Excel. Excel's an amazing program, and it does a lot of really, really cool things. But what happens when you're outgrowing Excel and as well? You've got this software where you've got so many sheets, so many formulas, so many macros, and all these other things happening that we've had customers call us up and literally say, it is so big, it is so overwhelming that if I add one more formula, this thing is going to crash. If I try to do one more thing with this spreadsheet, it is just going to freeze up and lock up.
Yeah, one of the biggest reasons is having them come over because of human error. They're sick of human error happening on these spreadsheets. The data is not consistent, it's cumbersome, and more importantly, they need a better governance around their business. And so security is a big one as well. And that's what is offered when you transition off those spreadsheets.
Yeah, that's a great point. And in fact, I'm gonna even dumb it down one more level and just say, Excel is not a system. It's a spreadsheet, it's a workbook, right? But it's not a system. It's not a workflow management solution, right? So it can do a lot of things, and it can track a lot of things, no doubt about it. But again, that's great when you're a single person company, okay, or a very, very small team where you can send files back and forth. But when you're trying to scale, Excel doesn't really cut it anymore, and that's when you need a better solution, okay? And again, I can just keep going on and on. I'm copying and pasting. I've got this template that I work with. It's great, but every time I have a new project, I have to make a copy of it and then update these things. That just gets really, really hard. So those are some of the problems, okay? But what I want to do now is really just talk about some of the use cases for Quickbase. And here's the reason why I want to give a couple different use cases, because number one, Quickbase as a platform can be applied to every industry out there, okay? It can be applied to any industry, any scenario, almost any problem out there. And so it is kind of a white slate in terms of being able to produce something that solves any need that you have. But I want to give you some clarity and give you some examples to help you kind of capture what that means. I'm a land and commercial property developer, okay? I've got all these properties that I'm investing in, and then we've got to go in and develop that property or develop that land and get it ready to sell or get it ready for tenants to move in. And I've got contracts that I've got to manage. I've got all these contractors that are coming and going. I've got all these expenses that I need to allocate to these different projects and phases. That is something that, I mean, gosh, can you imagine trying to do that in Excel? That is hard, and I've never met a single property developer that did it exactly the same way as every other property developer out there. So you really do need something that can be applied not only to that industry, but to your specific instance within that industry and do it well. We're at VARC Solutions, we're experts at QuickBooks. And so we kind of speak QuickBooks and accounting and pro advisor and all those different terms. And so in our industry, just as an example, I might want to be using Quickbase because I want to be able to track my clients, but I also want to be able to customize that application or customize that system to be able to track things that are important to me. For example, I want to know what software they use. I want to know when the renewal is. I want to know what payroll system they use. I want to know, what client agreement I've got in place with them that defines maybe the pricing or the scope of work, things like that. I want to be able to manage support tickets. You know, if I've got a client that calls me up and says, can you help me with this? I need to be able to create a support ticket and then manage that support ticket through the life cycle. It's open, it's being worked on, it's now closed. So those are very common scenarios in our industry. How about a landscape design company? Okay, I'm a company that goes out and I meet you at your house. Husband and wife, they show up and they say, hey, here's what we want to do on the back patio. We want to build this really cool thing, and we want to have this fireplace over here. Okay, those companies are out there needing to manage their sales pipeline. They need to be able to manage those marketing campaigns if they're trying to drum up business. They've got agreements that they need to be able to, capture, quote, and quite frankly, update and change and adapt. You know, those projects don't start and end the same way they started, right? They start and then they kind of morph over time when it's like, oh, I didn't know we could do that. Oh, let's add a pool. You know, let's do all these types of things. So being able to manage all those different elements in one system is really, really important. Another one, hey, I'm a parts supplier. I have equipment that maybe I need to check out and put it on a truck and then it's going to get used in the field. Or I'm a parts supplier and people come in, I check out parts, I return those parts. Some things to go right back into inventory, some other ones need to be maintained or repaired. Those are businesses that get really, really hard, really, really fast when you're trying to scale. Okay, and again, that's what this webinar is all about. How do I go from where I am to something that's bigger and more robust and more, frankly, more complicated, but wrangle that complexity in a system that can handle it and be able to adapt to my needs and my growth. Okay, all right. So, Leanne, we've talked about the problem. Okay, we've talked about some standard use cases for the platform. Now let's kind of get into the solutions. And again, I mean, I've kind of narrowed this down to two, but just imagine that there's hundreds of solutions out there. Here's the concept. If you are in what I would call a very cookie cutter industry, and there's really no exceptions to how we do things, we all kind of do it the same way, there is very likely a software solution out there that would be a perfect fit. I've got a buddy that's a residential roofer, and if he just does residential roofing, you can find a residential roofing software program out there, and it'll probably do the job very well. I've got another buddy that does pool chemical service, right? And so if he's just doing pool chemical service, there's a software program out there that will do that, and it's probably not that expensive, okay? But, and here's the big but, I've never met a single business owner in any of those industries that did everything the same and that fit perfectly in that little cookie cutter scenario, okay? I'm a full chemical service company, but every once in a while I'll go out and find that your heater is broken or your filtration system is broken, and now I need to sell you that thing. And I'm also now going to have a maintenance agreement that I'm going to have to support that pool equipment. And then, oh, by the way, I also noticed that your deck is a little eroded or falling apart. So I'm going to do some GC work and also fix your deck. Okay. Now that pool chemical software program that you thought was going to be a perfect fit no longer fits. Okay. So that's kind of the scenario. Again, if there is one out there that does exactly what you need, I encourage you to go find it and buy it and use it. Okay. But if you start expanding your services and now that software doesn't fit so well, now we got to look for an alternative. And that's where, again, I think this is where Quickbase is a perfect fit, because Quickbase is a low-code platform that allows you to build that custom solution that's adaptable and scalable to your business as it changes. And here's the bottom line: you own it, you control it, you can make it perfectly, make it a perfect fit for you. And if 3 months from now your business changes, you can adapt that system as you see fit. So Quickbase really is a good solution. Leanne, any other thoughts on any of those kind of things that we talked about from your perspective?
Yeah, we're seeing a huge uptick in manufacturing shop floor management. I mean, at the day-to-day that entails to even operate a facility. We're seeing a huge increase of Quickbase usage there. Fleet management. At the end of the day, it's the people that are working every single day to make the business run that actually really need this. And so that's where the term citizens development first was coined, because those are what is actually making the business run, and they need something with the efficiency that Quickbase is offering. So exactly as you said, it helps scale your business, but it can't scale if the people that are actually operating it can't, do their day-to-day efficiently.
Yeah, and in fact, Leanne, you make a really good point that I didn't bring up either, and that's, with some of the other systems that are out there in the market, and quite frankly, some of them that are a lot more expensive, even than Quickbase, is the challenge with a lot of those is anytime you have you need to fix something, right? You've got to go call the IT guy. Every time you want to build a new report, you've got to submit a support ticket to your IT team and then wait 3 weeks or maybe 3 months until they get around to building that report. Quickbase, as you're going to see, is a great platform that really is something that quote unquote citizen developers or internal IT folks or even a business manager in a department can go make changes on the fly. And you can lock that thing down. You can keep people from making those kind of changes if you don't want them to. But one of the cool things about Quickbase is that you can allow people to make those changes real time in the system, as opposed to waiting and having to submit requests and things like that. So it really does bring the IT down to the level that people can use on a daily basis without having to feel like their hands are tied whenever they want to change something. Yep. So we're about to jump into the demo. Here's a real quick summary of all the things we've talked about basically so far. What is Quickbase? Okay, first off, it's a low-code platform. This is not something you're going into and writing code, okay? There's some coding things that are kind of happening behind the scenes, and you can do some of that stuff to make the system work a little bit better, automate some things, etc. But day in and day out, it's a visual tool. You can make changes on the fly. It's cloud-based, which means it's not this desktop software that you have to stick on a network and then maintain the network. It's all in the cloud, always backed up, always available. And here's, I think, one of the best parts. It's also affordable for small teams, whether you're a SMB, whether you're a mid-market company, whether you're an enterprise. It is very affordable for lots of different sizes of companies. And Leanne mentioned at the very beginning, Quickbase was created in 1999. Originally, it was developed and sold by Intuit, and then it was spun off about in 2016. Now it's a separate company, and it's just continuing to grow and thrive as a platform. And in our company, VARC Solutions, we're an elite level Quickbase partner. We're an application developer, and what we do every single day is build solutions, custom solutions for clients, and then also help maintain those over time. And what's cool about this, and I kind of alluded to this before, nobody ever wants to be a slave to a particular developer or a slave to a specific programmer. And what's cool about Quickbase is not only is it low code, I can go in and make changes. If I was somebody in my HR team, I could go in and make changes and build custom reports without having to call the IT folks. There are also hundreds of thousands of developers out there that know the software, know the platform, and can help support you and maintain that application, as opposed to having that very, very custom code software program that was built that nobody knows how to maintain.
In light of, scaling, how quickly is the turnaround from, the start of the conversation of Quickbase to implementing it? What does that look like? Because I think it varies depending on the business, but Quickbase offers such a unique approach to SaaS. I think that's a great point to bring up, like how quickly you can get Quickbase implemented.
Yeah, in fact, it's a great question. In fact, we get that question when people call us up and saying, "Hey, I've heard of Quickbase. I used it at my other company, and now I'm trying to implement it at this new company that I'm at. how fast can you get this thing up and running? And also, how much is it going to cost me? That's, the two questions we get all the time. What's it going to cost? And how long is it going to take? So here's the great news. Again, relatively speaking, compared to some of those other larger systems like NetSuite, like Salesforce, like SharePoint, etc., Quickbase is much, much more affordable, and it can be implemented super fast. If we had a client call us up and say, hey, I have to have something implemented in the next 2 weeks, okay, we're not going to build the entire system in 2 weeks, but we can actually create the core functionality, or a basic workflow within a few weeks for sure. I would say on average, most of the projects that we work on, they're usually in probably that 45 to 60-day range in terms of, from start of the conversation to actually having something that's used by the team when we are doing, from the beginning type of development. And in terms of cost, and I've got a whole slide on this a little bit later, like what's the platform cost and what's the development cost. But if you look at the slide that's on the screen in terms of like the total cost of ownership, the right side scale is that 150,000 and up. The green part is about that $10,000 mark, and so Quickbase is on that lower end in terms of total cost of ownership. We talk with clients that are trying to get off of NetSuite. They had a failed implementation. It cost $100,000. It took them a whole year. And then after they got all the way down that road, they find out the software can't do something for them, and they've wasted their entire, wasted a year, wasted a lot of money, and wasted a lot of time. And so, yeah, to your question, Leanne, very quickly, within a few months, you can get up and running with Quickbase. And if what you're trying to do is kind of in that reasonable area, anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 is a pretty doable thing in terms of the platform for most projects. Cool. All right, I'm going to jump into demo mode now. I'm going to actually switch to Quickbase, and I'm going to show you the actual platform. Here's kind of the flow that I'm going to go through, though. I want to talk about dashboards and how Quickbase can solve that visibility problem. I want to see what's going on in the business. Talk about how you can manage kind of workflows with that as well. And then I'm going to show you some typical screens, a client window, a project window, a proposal window, just so you can kind of see it and feel it. And also through that process, I'm going to show you how some of the workflows can be automated to solve repetitive tasks as well. So with no further ado, let me pull over my Quickbase screen. And the other point that I feel compelled to make here is when you start looking at Quickbase, one of the challenges for me, at least, when I try to explain Quickbase to somebody else is there's no one way to look at Quickbase. How we've built the design and the dashboards and things like that, you could take 100 different apps and put them side by side, and none of them might look like this. Okay, so instead of thinking this is what Quickbase is, I want you to have firmly in your head, this is just an example of what it could look like. We've built other apps that don't even have any of this dashboard stuff on it, but they've got some other things working, okay? So it's adaptable to what you need. All right, so first thing I really want to highlight, this is just a dashboard that somebody might log in and see when they first get into their Quickbase application. And I want to highlight just a few capabilities within the software. And number one, on the top right corner, see how I've got that thing kind of labeled actionable KPIs and insights. Again, this is just an example, but in your company, maybe it's important to see how many customers you have at one time. I've got 102. How many clients do I have with no timesheets in the last 90 days? Those are people that I've worked with in the past, but for whatever reason, I haven't worked with them recently. Okay, I've got 88 of those. How many projects have moved through the entire process and now they're ready to invoice? Well, I got 2. Okay, those are just examples, but the point is that data is all there behind the scenes, and if you don't have a dashboard to help draw that data out, you'd have to go mining for your data to find it. Instead, we can draw that information out into a dashboard to help you see the data and help you manage the data. Another good example is what I would call team management. Okay, so think of that vehicle wrapping service example that I used before. Okay, I've got salespeople that are on the phones talking to clients all day long, talking about the project. They're doing proposals, and once I sign up, somebody to wrap their van or their truck or their RV or what have you, I need to go run them through a process, but I need to assign that to a project manager. That project manager is going to be managing that entire hand-holding that project. Okay, well, I want to know, how many projects does Adam have? How many projects does Casey have? How many projects does Jacob have? And given all those things that are happening behind the scenes, how many are active versus how many of them are past due? So anything that's in the past due category, that's for me a red flag that something needs to happen. I need to call Casey up and say, Casey, you got 10 past due, what's going on? So again, if I didn't have a dashboard like this, I would have to be going through spreadsheet type of mode, trying to find those nuggets of data that help me manage the business. And if I'm scaling, that becomes really, really hard to do without a dashboard. Okay. Let's talk about workflow management. So for example, if I've got a process, that could be a call to quote to invoice to manage process or something along those lines. I want to see that workflow, and I want to know, for example, how many proposals are ready to be sent? How many proposals have been sent out but haven't been approved yet? How many approved proposals are there needing a project to be created? Okay, so you can map those things out and workflow that process. Okay, here's another good example, and I'll show you this one because this is really kind of cool. In our company, we track time. You know, if we're doing a project for a client, we're tracking all the time that we're working on that project. Well, that time gets attached to projects and tickets and ultimately needs to get approved. And so I want to be able to manage that time tracking process because that flows in to billing, it flows into payroll, it flows into all these other systems downstream. So I know that I've got 44 timesheets that need to get approved. Well, I'm going to click on that button that says I've got 44 of them. And in just a moment here, the screen will refresh and it'll show you all of those timesheets that need to get approved. Okay, this is an example of a Quickbase report that's generated, and I've designed it a little bit here. And I could go in and edit each one of these records and tell it that it's been approved. But without having to go in and edit them manually, I've also built a button here to automate that time approval. So, so that time right there has been approved. I click that approved time button. It behind the scenes marks it as approved. It puts in an approved by and a date. Okay, and now I've got this next one. I can go hit that approved button. And there's a lot of things that I can do in bulk mode, but I just wanted to show you the functionality of being able to create a button that automates that task. Okay, well, remember on my dashboard, it started out as 44 and 4. Well, I've just approved 2 of those. So the next time I come in and look at this dashboard, or if somebody else on my team is looking at that dashboard and they're doing something with the time, notice behind the scenes, it's been updated. And so I've only got 42 left that need to be approved and 6 that have been approved. Okay. So again, those are just examples of how the dashboards really can help you see the data behind the scenes and give you that visibility that you need. Okay. So let's talk about a couple more things. So on the bottom of this dashboard, I've got a couple different tabs, and like one of the things that we've built and a lot of customers of ours like to see is this sort of Kanban type of board. This is great for production environments. It's great for any type of sales pipeline management where somebody's going from quote to approval to closed won, things like that. And so, for example, let's say I've got this this customer called Carver's Marching Bands, and they just gave us the approval to work on their project. Well, instead of going in and literally like an Excel spreadsheet and editing the data, clicking the drop-down list, saying approved, putting in my name, putting in my date, all I actually have to do is drag it over to the awarded, and now it's an awarded project. Behind the scenes, the data has been updated. Now I want to say, okay, it's now in progress because I've assigned a manager and now we're working on it, okay? Now I've done the work and I'm now wanting to mark that project as closed, okay? Those are examples of how you can just drag and drop data in a Kanban type of report. And by the way, you can also drag things back and say, oh, you know, that one actually isn't done. You see how it's got incomplete activities? I need to drag that back to in progress, call the project manager, have them finish those last two things, and then once it's finished, I can drag it back over and say it's closed. Okay, so those are some examples of how we can use those types of dashboards and those type of Kanban reports to help manage the work. Okay, manage the data, manage the workflow. Okay. So I'm going to talk one more. I want to highlight one more thing about dashboards, and then we'll go into some of the sample client, sample project, sample proposal type of scenarios too. One of the things that we really like to do, and Leanne, I hope you'll appreciate this, but we like to drink our own Kool-Aid. Okay, so we are not only developers of Quickbase applications for everybody else. We actually use Quickbase to run our business. I mean, literally, there's not a single thing we don't do in our business where we don't use Quickbase. And we use data cleanup dashboards all the time, okay? And here's the thing. If I just had a simple spreadsheet and I was managing simple sets of data, no big deal. I just manage the data, it's good. But now when I'm scaling and I've got multiple people and I've got multiple people touching the data, people that are adding stuff, deleting stuff, editing stuff, what have you, filling in drop-down fields, all those types of things. Eventually, I'm going to look at that data and find that there's a mess. There's things that didn't get filled in. There's approved projects that don't have a project manager assigned. I have a closed lost project that still has money that needs to be billed out. Whatever those scenarios are. And so in our company, we like to build these dashboards. We call them should be zeros, okay? Everything on this screen should be a zero if things are right, okay? So for example, you know, I built a report that says, hey, I want to see all the proposals that have literally a $0 amount, which means the proposal is not quite a proposal yet, okay? Got 4 of those. Maybe I've got timesheets that somehow got in the system, but there's no duration on them. So like there's 0 time data timesheets, okay? Or I've got a project that's closed, but it's not marked as complete. Like there's activities still to be done. Okay. Again, you can apply this to your own scenario in your own mind and ask yourself the question, if I've got a system and I've got data that's getting updated all behind the scenes, how do I know when things are a mess? How do I know when things need to get cleaned up? Where are those things that I need to help manage a team and say, hey team, here's some things that need to get done. Can you go out and clean up that report? So we use that data cleanup type of dashboard concept to help make sure that the data is clean and correct, not just now, but next week, next month, next year, and going forward. Anything, by the way, Leanne, I'll just kind of kick it back to you for a second. Any kind of thoughts on some of the things that you see people using with dashboards?
Yeah, I think the visual aid is very popular. I think sometimes businesses get a little report happy, and something providing simplicity, I think, goes a long way. I did want to call out really quick because I do know we're doing a Q&A session at some point with this.
Yep.
I don't think the chat is available to everybody on the call. And so if there are questions, I don't know if you might have to unmute some of the guests because I know we have about 10 minutes left here. So I wanted to give an opportunity to have anybody speak if they wanted to.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. You can post in the chat, the question panel as well. So yeah, definitely let us let us know if you have any of those questions. Perfect. All
Yes.
right, so let's do this. And by the way, if there are any, please let me know. We can address those. Let's do this. I want to jump in to some specific windows and forms, if you will, because again, I've been living more in this dashboard land, and that's quite frankly where I suggest people live and work and manage. But at the end of the day, you got to get in the data. That's where you're going to be adding stuff, changing stuff, deleting stuff, what have you. So I want to just kind of show you a sample client and just kind of talk through some of the bells and whistles here too. So, for example, Quickbase as a platform is continuing to evolve, right? There's new functionality getting added all the time, trying to make things better, smoother, more efficient. And so there's here's just a view of a customer data where I've got my client's name and I've got the phone and the email address and the terms and what industry they're in and address. I can actually view this in what's called the new forms, but I've also can view this in what are called the old forms, or at least the prior to new forms. Okay, and so you can kind of see there's some different ways of seeing the data. Just some that's a little bit more visual, graphical. There's a little bit more table kind of view. But what I want to point out here is, unlike Excel, Quickbase is a relational database in the cloud, which means you can have connected data that has data flowing back and forth. And so, for example, in our system, right, or this demo, we've got a client, but that client has an address, it has multiple contacts, it has multiple proposals, maybe multiple projects, multiple timesheets and invoices, and all that data is connected back to the client. And when you've got a relational database like that, what's really, really nice is that underlying data, the data from the projects or the timesheets or the invoices or what have you, can also be rolled up to that client level to summarize that data. And so just as an example, we've rolled up some of the invoice data into a financial dashboard section that we've created, and it helps me at a glance see, okay, financially, how much revenue have I generated with this client? What are some of the expenses that I've incurred? And ultimately, what is my maybe profit or profit margin on that client, okay? And so I can take that underlying data and roll it up into that financial view. It's very, very, very cool capability within the software. Okay, let me show you another one. I'm going to go to a sample proposal. And in this proposal, what I want to highlight here for you is the fact that you actually can build a process into this database, build a process into this Quickbase application. And so, for example, it's not just a spreadsheet of proposal data, okay? I've got a proposal, it's got all these details on it, certain line items, certain quantities, certain amounts, okay? Things like that. That's great, that's the detail. But what happens in the real world, okay? Whether I'm handwriting this out in the field and or having it in Quickbase, at some point, I've got to get that proposal printed out. I've got to send that to that client. I need that client at some level to respond back to me and say that they approve it or need some changes. And then I want to then move it into the next phase, which is my either implementation or delivery or production environments, whatever it is. And so what we've done, and we try to dumb it down to really the lowest common denominator. I want everybody to be able to use this system and not be confused at all. And so if we've created that project or that proposal, that is, the next step is I want to be able to print it. And so we've generated some automation tools within our Quickbase to be able to just click a button and have it turn that proposal into a PDF that gets automatically attached to that proposal in Quickbase. I then can go to the next step, which is actually sending that proposal out to that client so that it's emailing the client. It's already got the subject line and the body message and the attachment in there. And then they get it and they approve it, whether that's through a DocuSign integration or just by calling me up and saying that they approve it. I can now go through an approval process, edit this record and add who the approver is, who the when they approved it. So I've got tracking there. And then I want to be able to then flow that in to a next project phase. And I made this point before, but I'm going to say it one more time, and that's this. I've taken the time to build that proposal. I've put in all the line item details. I've written out the descriptions. I've put in the quantities. Now that that proposal is approved, should I have to go into some other system to kick off a production process and then copy and paste, manually rekey any of that stuff? And the answer is no, I don't. I don't want to have to do any of that stuff. So since Quickbase, being a relational database, I can use the data that's already there, and I can use that to then flow into a project process where all that stuff has already been filled in, okay? So that's an example of just kind of a workflow management that you can use within the actual data. Now, I want to wrap up with one more really key functionality that really makes Quickbase go beyond, a very simple, straight, just put in the data and be able to have it there kind of system. I want to automate workflows. I want to automate processes. So, give you an example. I've met a lot of folks that do home flipping, right? I go buy a house or a property of some sort, and I've got these 20 things that I have to do to turn that house into something that I can sell for a profit. Okay, and I do that over and over and over again. It's the same 20 steps. Some of the details might change, but it's the same 20 steps. Okay, well, I can do that same type of process by templatizing those tasks, by defining for different types of projects, what are those tasks that I need to complete? And then I can turn those into what I call a turnkey project. So I'm going to give you an example. I pulled up just a sample project here, and notice it has all the line item details that were on the original proposal. But now what I want to do is I want to create a task list that's associated with that. And by the way, just so I can show you that I don't have any magic up my sleeves here at all, I have these activities that are already there. I'm going to delete them real quick. Okay, so in this sample project, notice that there are 0 activities. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to go edit this project, and I am going to say that this is a full package process, or full package project for this landscaping company. I'm going to tell it what type of project it is. I'm going to save that project. And then I'm going to click this little button to turn it into a turnkey project. So instead of saying, okay, every time I create this type of project, I have to go manually add these activities, like literally add it, type it in, save it, add it again, type it in, save it. If I've got any type of activity like that where I'm having to do those same things over and over and over again, what I want to do is I want to be able to create that template project, hit the button, and then go to that activities tab and see all those activities pre-populated in the record. And that's exactly what happened behind the scenes there. So I've got this lawn project. I hit the button and it comes in and says, great, I need to fertilize, do the sod, do the retreat the landscaping area, and then do the bed installation, okay? And notice it's got the activities, it's got when they should start, when they should finish. And not only that, I can also do some bulk edits. So for example, I could go in and grid edit and say, okay, who needs to do that work? Well, Alexandra needs to do that one. Annette needs to do that one. Oh, and actually, I'm going to copy and paste. Annette needs to do these other ones too. Okay, so that's where it gets and starts feeling a little bit like a spreadsheet, but it's using the power of a spreadsheet type of form to automate those tasks and automate those updates. And now I've got those updated activities. Okay, so let me again. I'm going to pause here for a second. If anybody has any questions, feel free to either raise your hand, ask those questions, and let us know if you've got any of those. But Leanne, that's kind of the big picture of some of the stuff that I wanted to walk through, just so people can see some of the power of the dashboards, seeing how the system actually looks and feels.
Yeah, Quickbase native, before even having any sort of customization involved, is already giving businesses this full functionality in so many of their different departments. So this was a great overview to showcase that.
And can I show you one more thing too? And by the way, this is not showing you, Leanne, because I know you know Quickbase, but showing everybody else. Here's one of those tiny little things that I want to just point out, because some people are like, yeah, but how hard is it to add stuff? How hard is it to edit and things like that? And so let's say, for example, that I have multiple locations and I want to track what location this client is working at, okay, or maybe being serviced by. Well, I don't have that in my system. I didn't build that up front, but here I am a week into it or a month into it going, oh my gosh, we should have added that. Why didn't we track it? Why didn't we add that? Do I have to call the IT folks to go add that field? And the answer is no. All I have to do is come in here, like next to this favorite color, and say right click and say, I want to add a field maybe after that one, okay? And now I can either pick it from a list of fields that have already been added to the table, and maybe they just haven't been added to the form, okay? Or I can scroll all the way down to the bottom and say, I want to add a new field. And for example, I'm going to say this is a location field, okay? Assuming I can type, that is. I'm going to do a location field, and I want this to be a text multiple choice. Maybe it's a numeric currency, maybe it's a checkbox field, maybe it's a phone number or email address. Again, there's different types of fields, but I'm going to come in here and say multiple choice. And because it's a multiple choice, I get to put in the choices, okay? So I'm going to say, you know, this is maybe our Houston office, or our Austin office, or our Boston office. And I can even give people the ability to add new choices if I want that flexibility, right? And so now when I've added that field to the form, and by the way, you can see I didn't have to go to code mode. I didn't have to go into programmer mode. I can just add that on the fly. And the next time I'm going in and editing those records, I can come in and select, and again, I'm going to go back to that old form. Just something that's a little bit easier to work with. I'm going to go to that old form and I'm going to edit that record. And well, of course, I'm trying to do that. And then be able to find that drop-down list, just like I've got, you know, a terms list, and be able to populate it and fill it in. Okay. So those are some examples of how easy it is to go in and add, edit, keep the system up to date, and go from there. Okay. All right. I know we're running out of time. Let me just kind of go back to the PowerPoint here, and I'll just wrap up. And then again, if anybody does have any questions, we can answer those at the end. We will also have this recorded and be able to play it back on social media and all those kind of fun things. Okay. Let me go through the screens that I've already got here and get to the ending, which is where some people start getting into the question about, you know, how much does this stuff cost? What can it integrate with, etc. So again, just because I know we're almost out of time, let me just kind of highlight the fact that, you know, Quickbase, even though we try to use it as our source of truth and we try to use it for everything, that doesn't mean you don't have other systems. Okay, you might have other systems that you're using for campaign management. You might be using other systems like Salesforce. You might be using Google Suite, DocuSign, Dropbox, Amazon S3 for storage. You might even be using QuickBooks, for example. And Quickbase, because it has an open API, can be developed to integrate with those other solutions. In fact, Quickbase has an integration platform called Pipelines, and there are existing pipelines to help integrate with some of those more common systems, like your SharePoint, like your DocuSigns, like Slack, things like that. But what's even better than that is, let's say you've got a system that isn't on that predefined list of integrations. Well, the good news is that through Zapier and Workato, which are integration platforms of their own, you can integrate Quickbase through Zapier or Workato to literally thousands of other applications, okay? So it's very, very connectable to everything else that you might be trying to use. In our scenario, because we kind of live in that Quickbase world as well as the QuickBooks world, a lot of the clients that we work with want to be able to integrate Quickbase with QuickBooks, okay? And so Leanne, for example, at the very beginning, you mentioned that we built that tool called Q2Q Connect. Well, Q2Q Connect is the tool that we built specifically to integrate Quickbase with QuickBooks Desktop, okay? And it works great. But we also have some clients that are on QuickBooks Online and want to be able to integrate Quickbase with QuickBooks Online. And so there's a couple different ways of doing that. And we are also experts at that type of integration, okay? But so here's the, the question that we always get at some point, right? Which is, okay, great, that's fantastic. How much is this going to cost me? Okay, right? So here's a slide that kind of gives you that big picture overview of what the platform costs, what the development costs might look like for you, so that you have, so that you're going into this with full transparency and know how much this is going to cost, okay? For Quickbase, they have primarily, there's 3 different tiers, but the most common ones that we see are the Teams tier and the business tier. The Teams tier starts out at 20 users, business tier starts out at 40 users, and you can kind of see $42 a user per month, $66 a user per month. So if you're in that 20 user range, that's going to be about $8,400 a year just for the platform itself, okay? $26,000 if you're on that business plan, and again, that's up for 40 users. You compare that though to like a NetSuite or a Salesforce, and now we're talking about $100,000 instead of 8. Okay, so it's a very, very big difference in cost. As a company, since we serve a lot of clients that are on QuickBooks, a lot of the clients that we're working with for QuickBooks, they're small companies, small, medium-sized companies, and maybe don't have 20 users, maybe don't have 40 users. And so we actually have what we call small team accounts, where as little as 2 users can be on our platform for as little as $1,900 a year. And again, that's platform access. And then on top of that, you get to build the system that you want. So how much does that development cost? And again, this is where the big variability comes in, because if you've got very, very a small dream in terms of what you want it to do, we could do projects for in the range of $5,000 to $10,000. We've got clients that we do medium-sized projects, which are kind of in that $10,000 to $25,000 range. But we also do large projects that are even that do trend out to 6 months, a year, 2 years of development, because things keep changing and evolving in your business. And those can be $25,000, it could be $50,000, it could be $100,000. It really just depends on what you want the system to do and how much you want to build into it. But to summarize for you, what I'm really trying to get across on this screen is that if you are just starting out with Quickbase and you're what I would call maybe a typical company using Quickbase, small, medium-sized company, you're looking at probably that $8,400 a year for the platform, and probably in that $15,000 range for development. And again, that could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but that's kind of a ballpark for you in terms of what that might look like in terms of cost. Okay. Last thing I'm going to say, just for, hey, if you've got questions, if you want follow up in more details, just a little bit about us as a company. Our company, VARC Solutions, we're based out of Friendswood, Texas. That's just South Houston. We have been in business since 1999. We've got an 18-person team. We are QuickBooks experts, we're Quickbase experts, and we also, in addition to kind of development on the Quickbase side, we also do bookkeeping. We do cleanups and migrations for QuickBooks. Okay. Our Quickbase team within our company, we've got 6 certified expert builders. They're all local. They're all in our office in Houston. We've been a Quickbase developer solution provider since 1999. We've built thousands of apps for clients around the country in every imaginable industry. and we are also kind of experts at integrating Quickbase with QuickBooks as well. So I've got the phone number up there. I've got our email address if you have any questions. I'm going to leave this slide up here on the screen just for the next couple of minutes. And again, thank you for coming to the webinar. We hope this was helpful. If you do have any questions, if you want to kind of kick the tires on Quickbase or talk about your specific problem or situation, we are happy to kind of get on the phone with you and talk through that and see if there's maybe a solution that we can help build for you. Leanne, any closing thoughts for you? I really appreciate you being here to support, not only to add your insights on the call, but also to support us as our partner.
No, I'm super honored to be a part of this. I think that at the end of the day, what I've seen in my role is clients love to work with partners, and they love to work with partners with extensive experience, such as yourselves. We don't have many partners that have been expert Quickbase developers since the 90s. So that, I think, alone is a selling point. You've seen the evolution of Quickbase in all sorts of forms, and you're always, super knowledgeable and helpful. And I'm happy to support the partnership however is needed. Obviously, if they have any questions, they're more than welcome to reach out to me as well. Happy to facilitate any of those conversations with your team.
Awesome. Thanks, Leanne. And, I didn't mention it before too, but, this is also not one of those things where you just have to go spend a whole bunch of money up front and hope it works. There are free trials. There, you can kind of get in and do a free trial to get started and see how it works. And then, of course, we can do demos as well and kind of show you some of the things that it's capable of doing. So thanks again, Leanne. Appreciate you. Appreciate Quickbase and our partnership. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the stop button on the recording. And again, let us know if you have any questions.